multiple ways to take this train of thought. The first of which is to assume that nothing is interacting from the outside on our universe. If that's the case, then our universe should exist in every possible state at the same time. Should exist every way possible, everywhere possible. Since the dawn of time, it should have existed in every possible way. This is actually a pretty good description of what's called the many worlds theory. Now, I have a problem with this way of looking at it, which my problem is, in the original double slit experiment, where the one electron managed to go through both slits at the same time, the electron still interacted with itself. And if that's the case, then if the universe existed in every single state at the same time, it should be interacting with itself in the same way. And if that were happening, then it could be argued, or I would argue, that you would be able to see every possible decision that you could have made happening in front of you at the same time. Every possible iteration of the universe, and that point that you're standing in, would be existing simultaneously. And if we look around us, it's pretty obvious that that's not happening. The second way that we can look at this is that there is some kind of outside interaction occurring on our universe. The problem with this idea, however, is, one moment, even if there were some kind of outside interaction on our universe, say, I'm the outside interaction, here's my hand, and I'm poking our universe over and over and over. And every time I poke it, the universe has to be in only one place at a time, and every time I'm not poking it, it can be everywhere at once. So the problem with this idea is I'm finite, and I can exist in many states. And so even though I'm doing this and influencing the universe, you could theoretically just draw a larger circle around me and this paper here to say that this is now just one really big system. And in this way, I would exist in every possible state, and so would the universe, and we would just be one very large universe instead of one slightly smaller universe, and nothing would have been solved at that point. After a lot of thinking about this, however, I have managed to come across one possible way that I can think of that we could have an outside interactor that wouldn't just become quantized as well, wouldn't exist in every possible state. And the only way that that can happen, as far as I can reason, is if this outside interactor that's interacting with us and keeping us in one state instead of existing in every place at once, this outside interactor would have to only have one possible state. That way, even if it is quantized and has to exist in every possible place at the same time, it would still only exist in one place, and it would still be able to collapse our entire system into one existence instead of a bunch of existences existing simultaneously. If this outside interactor were to exist in only one state, there are a few properties that I would think it would have to exhibit. First of all, this outside interactor would have to exist in every possible place at the same time. That way, you couldn't say that it could just move a little bit, and all of a sudden it's got multiple states that it could exist in. It could exist over here or over here. It would have to exist everywhere at the same time. It would have to be some kind of omnipresent force. The second property would be that this interactor would have to be entirely unchanging. It would have to be the same at the beginning of time and at the end of time and at every time in between. It couldn't ever change in any way, because if it did change, there would be a series of possible states that it could be in, and it can only have one state for all of this to work. At this point, you might be saying, but wait, if there's some kind of omnipresent, unchanging force all over the universe, then wouldn't that collapse every single electron and every single particle into one state all the time? Because there would theoretically be something interacting with them constantly. There would never be a time when there wasn't an interaction, and so we wouldn't be able to observe any of this. Electrons would always be in one place because they'd always have something interacting with them. In order to explain my ideas on this, I'm going to have to basically lay my cards on the table here and tell you what the conclusion of my idea is, which is that I think this outside interactor is some sort of God. In fact, I have a very specific idea of which God, because I happen to be a Christian, but I'm not trying to prove that at the moment. At the moment, I'm just trying to put forth the idea that it is some sort of God. May the flame wars in the comments begin. The reason I say this is because if there were some sort of omnipresent force, as I'm proposing, that is keeping the universe in one state. If it weren't intelligent and were just some random normal force, then it would theoretically collapse every single particle in the universe into one state. There wouldn't be more than one possibility in any situation. The entire universe would be what's called deterministic, and we would never see this kind of thing where electrons were in all kinds of places at once because there was more than one place they could be. There would always be something interacting, and they would always exist in one state. If the omnipresent force that I'm talking about were intelligent, however, I don't think it would necessarily do that. And the reason I don't think it would do that has to do with neuroscience.